Greetings Terrarians, Khaios here. Today I'm going to be showing you how I design Oriental style houses. So I already have a foundation laid. The layer is stone slab. It has some blue tiled wall painted white in the background with some rich mahogany fences to let some light in. And then the rest of the details are just some strange plants and some stone with some moss on top of it. It's not a big deal, and I just feel like it fits the theme, but I want to go straight into the house. So what I'm going to do is grab some ebon stone brick with some gray paint, and I'm just going to place a little bit on the outside of the houses. And the reason why I'm extending it a little bit in instead of just 3 tiles is because it's kind of the place where you would like take off your shoes and get ready to actually enter the house. And then for the floor of the house itself, I'm going to grab some rich mahogany and paint it brown and just line that on the bottom right there. Above the stone edges over here, I'm going to place some dynasty wood painted brown, and this is where the doorways are going to be. And then from here, they will also be our exterior walls. I'm actually going to reduce this one on either side and just make the walls up like this. And I'm shooting for around 6 tiles high, just because I feel like that's a decent ceiling height. So the ceiling will be right here, and we can just run some more dynasty wood along the edge like this. So now we've already got a fairly nice looking framework for the house, and on top of that will be the roof where most of the detail work will lie. But I'm going to show you some wall designs before I move up to the roof. For the outside, where the doors will be, I like to throw some rich mahogany fence that's been painted brown, or painted to match the walls if you don't have brown on the edges here. Gray also looks quite nice, and if you're going for something like a temple, deep red will look pretty good as well, and I'll show you that in just a little bit. If you want the build to look kind of rugged and old, just use some spooky wood painted brown and just place them all around the edges in the background, which looks quite nice. If you're going to do spooky wood, I recommend having some stone at the bottom edge. So if you grab some gray paint and blue tiled brick and just line the bottom, it really helps to just accent the walls so they don't all look the same and just make everything bland. You could also grab some brown paint and some shade wood wall and just line the area with some beams, and I'll just place one here and then one on the other side of the house just to give a little bit more accent and variation to the wall. Additionally, you could also do the same thing with rich mahogany on a cross beam, just a little bit on the edges if you'd like, or all the way across if that's what you want to do as well. If you don't want a wooden wall, the go-to is pretty much dynasty wall. I like the white one personally. I think it looks quite nice. And we're just going to place that up here. And now notice how we have this texture at the very top. I rather like that because it adds a little bit more detail to the wall, a little bit more variation. But if you wanted to get rid of that, all you would have to do is place a line of wall directly above it, which this top part will be hidden by the roof, so you don't really need to worry about seeing that. But I'm going to leave that there because I like it. Another wall detail that you might add is some rice paper wall, and the way that I like to emulate that is with some white paint and some offline topaz and ruby gemspark wall. The reason why I use those 2 gemsparks is because when they're painted white, they look relatively identical. What we're going to do is just place one in the middle here, and in this case it's going to be topaz, and then we're just going to alternate the pattern. and I'll just do 2 off to the side of ruby on either side, and then 1 row up I'll do a ruby alternated by 2 of the topaz. And it ends up looking like quite a nice layer of rice paper wall. The reason why I don't use any other wall, like I could use Dynasty, is I can't get another wall that matches perfectly in color, and it just doesn't quite look right. Another thing that I might do with this, now that I'm looking at it, is kind of make it into a framed window. And I'm going to just grab some living wood with some actuators so that we can walk in front of it once we're done. And I'm just going to line the window with a frame, and I'll just start right here. Now, if you're working with actuated blocks, I highly recommend that you ensure there's a wall behind every actuated block. The reason for that is when a block is actuated, it no longer counts as a tile. It counts more like a piece of furniture, and it doesn't count as a wall either. So if I had a hole right here in the background, then this is actually an air gap, and enemies can spawn in here. And if I had too many of those, it could even prevent spawning or validation of the house. So ensure that you do have enough walls behind everything that's been actuated. Onto the roof, all we need to do is grab some Dynasty shingle. I like working with both blue and red. When I'm working with a house that has brown exterior walls, I like to do a gray roof, but you could also do black, would look quite nice, maybe even brown, though that might be a little bit too much brown. So just start with 1 of the Dynasty shingles and go 3 off to the side on the edges of the house, and then go 1 up on both of those 3 edges and straight across the entire roof. We'll just tie that off right here. And then we're going to do 1 more layer, minus 1 block on either side. So we have a nice step up on each side, and then we have the layer of the house just like this. And then we're going to slope the edges to give it the kind of oriental feel that we're all used to seeing. And I'll just do a hammer on the edge right there, 1 hammer there, and then slope that to an angle. And then I'm just going to do every other tile hammered down 1, just to kind of add a little bit more detail and intricacy to the roof. And that's really all that we need to do. We could make this a double layer roof easily by using the opposing color. So we have red, obviously. So if we grab the blue Dynasty shingle, and we just create a layer on top. We're actually going to shave this top layer down 1 to do this. And then we'll just create another layer directly on top, but not going all of the way out to the edge, it'll just be 1 shy. And then we're going to do the same thing where we go up, another layer across, and then up at the tip right there. And then we just slope everything. And then the final layer where everything's going to be a half block in the alternating pattern. Now we have a thicker 2-tier roof. You can see little bits of air gaps in the middle here, and all we need to do is grab any sort of wall. I like to match the colors, so I'll grab gray paint and we'll just line that in the back. Another little thing that we can do is grab some brown paint with this rich mahogany and just place it right on the edge right here, just to add a little bit more detail. And the reason I grabbed the brown paint rather than something like gray is so that it can match the exterior walls rather than match the roof. But if you wanted it to match the roof, you could do that instead. If you were looking to take the roof one tier a little bit more extravagant, and the reason behind that would be if you were making something like a temple, where the roofs are quite tall and quite elaborate, I would do another row of roof directly on top, but this one's actually going to be shaped slightly different so that it looks a bit more exquisite than the previous renditions that we've had. So we're going to do a layer of the alternated roof once again, and it's going to stop right at the edge. So we had a red dynasty, then blue dynasty, and then red dynasty shingle in that alternating pattern. And then what we're going to do is place another block here, a gap, a row, and then end it off mirroring on the other side, and then 2 more tiles directly on top, skip a space, and just 1 more row like this. Now it looks a little funky right now, but once we get to hammering everything, it's going to look quite nice. So we're going to make sure to slope that back down to an angle, and then slope the one directly above it to an angle as well. Do an angle here, do a half block right there, a half block right there, and actually I did add too many layers there, so I'm going to scratch that off. Half block, half, angular, and angular. And it's already that very intricate top that sometimes you'll see on top of Oriental temples. If we wanted to add even more detail, we could just knock that out and bring the top layer of the roof down. Do that on the other side. And we could even do something like scratch this layer and replace it with the blue and alternate every other tile. That was too many. Just knock out every other tile and fill it in with the color that we just placed, which could add even more detail, and we'll just hammer these bits down like that, and fill in that gap with some rich mahogany that's been painted to match the roof, and we'll just fill in everywhere that we see air. So we'll do it there, over here as well, and there we have a much more intricate style roof that's really just all about how you hammer and layer the roofs in the alternating red, blue, red pattern. The last thing that I wanted to look at is just coloration. If you wanted to make this look more like a temple and make it look a little bit fancier, you could leave the roof gray if you wanted to, but I like going with black in this instance. So I'm just going to paint this roof black real quick. And don't forget to paint all of the walls in the background that are to match the roof. And then for all of the brown exterior walls, I'm going to grab some deep red paint and hit these rich mahogany walls on the outer edge, hit the rich mahogany fences on the inner side right here, and just paint all of this dynasty wood with the deep red. And this gives it a nice royal feel and just really makes the build pop for something that you want to be more extravagant and more royal. Now, to show you a few more details that you can add to the house, I expanded it just a little bit. It is 1 block taller and it's 1 block wider on either side, just so I could show you a little bit more that you could do. So we're going to grab that deep red paint and some dynasty wood, and I'm just going to create a layer right here and just shave down that window for now, and just go all of the way across right here. So we kind of have more of a Torii gate looking design up towards the middle part of the roof. And what I'm going to do is switch to some black paint so that it matches the roof that we have, and grab some pearl wood fence and just fill into this top layer here like that. It just gives it a little bit more detail, a little bit more extravagance to it. And we're just going to reshape this window so that it matches with everything else. And that's just a little bit more detail that we could add. Additionally, we could do things like sloping parts of the places where the doors will go. Speaking of doors, for this kind of build, I like to use pearlwood doors, which I don't actually have on me because apparently I forgot to grab them. So let's just go ahead and grab that. And I'm going to paint these gray, because they look quite nice in this style of build, to me at least. And then one final detail that I might add is to just grab some gray paint or maybe some black paint and grab some honey and some yellow team and some brass shelf, and these are all the platforms that we're going to do. This is a technique that's used by Rulick, and if you haven't checked out his builds, you absolutely need to. I'll leave a link to his build thread on the forums in the description below. But what we're going to do is just place a bit of honey platform, a bit of yellow team platform, and a bit of brass shelf right on the edges, and it kind of just gives this nice gradual curve to it. So basically, that's everything that I would do to create an Oriental house. I hope you found this build tip video useful. If you did, be sure to leave a like and a comment. It really helps me out. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll catch you all later. Happy building.